I think that there are a lot of people in Canada, even those who are very pro-decarbonization and pro-moving off of oil, who now understand the importance of finding a way to get Canadian crude to markets other than the U.S.
So this is a liberal, folks. This is not a conservative. May sound like a conservative, but it's a liberal.
This week has felt like the political twilight zone. Long-held positions are flipping, and even liberals are now conceding that pipelines are necessary. In the process, it's becoming impossible to deny what the mainstream media has been fighting against for the last 3 years. Pierre Poilievre has been right on this all along.
Let's take a look.
Okay, let's make a drastic turn to the topic we've spent a bunch of the show speaking about, which is kind of this provincial divergence or political divergence when it comes to an extra pipeline. The discussion is back in the front pages and the headlines, Sharon, because of what's going on in Venezuela, because there's heavy crude there, and because the U.S. has clearly decided that that's their heavy crude for the taking. Your take on what that means politically here?
Absolutely. I'm going to deviate for 2 seconds and just let you and your viewers know both Sebastian and I are University Rosedale residents and we'll be running against each other.
I'm here for that competition.
Get that breaking banner up now.
Listen,
Okay, so earlier in this segment, they were just talking about the whole Chrystia Freeland aspect and that, yes, she is actually resigning tomorrow, being Friday. And this was because evidently her new boss completely fumbled in a good way the whole communication part about this, because evidently it's been known that she's going to be moving and working for the Ukraine government. And when he dropped that announcement at 4 a.m, well, it set the whole Parliament Hill political establishment on fire, because everyone was asking the same question. Even liberals were saying, how can you work for two governments at the same time, especially the fact that you have cabinet security clearance? What gives? So she came out and said, well, it's an unpaid position. No problem, no problem. Anyway, long story short, ding dong, the witch is gone, as we said. And this was just a joke about the University Rosedale riding that is where Chrystia Freeland has been an MP for the last number of years. That is now up for grabs. So that was an interesting joke between the liberal and Sebastian Skamsky, who is essentially a free conservative now. He's not working directly for the party as director of communications. So if he wants to run, he can try.
I do hope he does, because we had the opportunity to meet him on a few occasions, and he's a pretty cool guy.
So I was watching that interview that you just did before this, and I got to say I was a bit perplexed by the minister's commentary and views on what all of this means and pipelines in Canada in general. I think this is an important conversation. I think what happened in Venezuela is putting further emphasis on the importance of our energy sector here in Canada. Now, both Venezuela and Canada have similar bitumen, but not the same environments. Canadian oil is low carbon, low cost compared to Venezuela, where they don't have the same infrastructure, they don't have the same environmental regulations. And so there is an issue in terms of where is our market going to be. The U.S. is a market for us right now, but this is an opportunity for Canada to further dive into, and for the government to further dive into, what does it mean for pipelines. I don't think the comments made by the minister before this were very helpful from a unity perspective in doing what's best for the country. We have product in the ground that needs to get out of the ground and to markets, and it's not going to happen by itself. So I do think this further emphasizes the entire discussion.
So this is a liberal, folks. This is not a conservative. May sound like a conservative, but it's a liberal. And this is a liberal similar to a lot of the other liberals who, not even a few weeks ago, were completely content in this position of, we don't need pipelines, pipelines are bad, oil is bad, and that's just all there is to it. Now, pipelines are good, okay, and we need them, but we have low carbon oil. That's the good thing about us.
First of all, how is oil low carbon when it's made of elemental carbon?
Well, let's not talk about that.
Secondly, I think that politicians, as well as just the general voting public, don't really see the importance of something until they absolutely need it. And that is where Canada's at right now.
I'm a bit crunched for time. I apologize, and I want to get the last three comments in. Sebastian, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, largely echoing what Sharon said. I think that there's a significant challenge for us now as a country, because we're seeing so much of that Venezuelan oil come online. And I think Liberals and Prime Minister Carney, if there's ever a hinge moment, it is this. Like, let's now realize that there's serious competition for us, that we need to actually seek out other markets, and that we need to build this pipeline. And for Mark Carney to do the thing that he ought to do, get out of the way, repeal those laws and regulations that are preventing this, and actually build at those unimaginable speeds so we can get our product to other markets.
Well, and that's it exactly. If the United States starts buying 1 million barrels per day less from Canada because they're getting it from Venezuela, well, who's Canada going to sell that to? If we just take the loss, that's approximately a $44 million loss every single day gone out of our economy. And that, again, depends on the price per barrel of oil.
Well, and I like Sebastian brought up Mark Carney's quote. He said, we're going to be building at unimaginable speeds that we haven't seen before in Canada ever, or in generations, or whenever I landed on the moon and, discovered the Great Wall of China and built it with my bare hands. These are the types of things that Mark Carney was saying during the election, and I love that Sebastian is hearkening back to it. Like, okay, so you said we're going to do all these things. You've done nothing. You've done literally nothing. And he's saying, listen, Liberals, Conservatives have been saying this all the time. This is your time. This is the moment to actually say, all right, pipeline now, get it done. So put up or shut up, because this has been what Pierre Poilievre has been warning about for the last 3 years.
Well, and the thing is, had Canadians elected a Conservative government back in April, that pipeline would have been in at least the first stages of being built by now, and we would have had a contingency plan. Now we have absolutely nothing, and it's going to take us who knows how many years to catch up. We cannot rely on giving our oil only to the United States. We need to find other markets, and for that to happen, we need a pipeline.
Laura?
The situation in Venezuela is giving Prime Minister Carney more social license for the MOU with Alberta. And I think it's pretty safe to say that right now Canadians are scared. Even if there's a debate about how long it could take for this Venezuelan oil industry to come back online and actually be competitive again, Canadians are scared about that. And so I think that there are a lot of people in Canada, even those who are very pro-decarbonization and pro-moving off of oil, who now understand the importance of finding a way to get Canadian crude to markets other than the U.S.
So Laura D'Angelo, also a Liberal, which is interesting. And listen to what she's saying. Even people that are extremely pro-environment and anti-pipeline understand that now we need a pipeline.
Well, yeah, because it's easy to rally against something when it has absolutely no bearing on your life. Right now in our house, if Ryan was like, we're not getting any dogs. Okay, no problem. We don't have any dogs. I don't want any dogs right now. That's not a problem. But if we did want dogs, then it would be a problem. Now, in this case, Canada really has no other choice. Right now, the only place we can really send our oil is to the United States. And if they're going to be getting it from Venezuela, well, they're not going to need as much from Canada or any at all. Who knows what the situation will end up being. So now Canadians are concerned. We don't have that economic growth or that economic impact coming into Canada anymore, or not in the quantities that we did. So what are we going to do? We've got all this oil. It's a great resource, but we have nobody to sell it to because we've boxed ourselves in.
Well, and this is where I look around and I say, well, why are Canadians scared? All the mainstream media has been telling us is that Canadians, they don't want a pipeline, despite the fact that polls show that Canadians do want a pipeline. But the mainstream media has been trying to convince everybody that, Canada doesn't want a pipeline, and in EB doesn't want a pipeline, and Quebec doesn't want a pipeline. Well, the politicians in Quebec don't want a pipeline. 73% of Quebecers actually are okay with a pipeline coming through there. But where's all the cheering throngs in the streets? Aren't you happy that we're not going to be able to sell any oil anymore? Aren't you happy about that? Oh, wait. No, you're not, because there's actually a consequence now. It's, as Tanya said, it's easy. It's easy to criticize and protest and say these ridiculous things and ridiculous statements when there's not really any possibility of it coming to fruition. But now when we are actually faced with this, Canadians are worried, and you know what? They should be.
Well, and it shows the reactive nature of the Liberals, that now that there's a problem, we need a pipeline, we need to consider having a pipeline, versus the proactive approach of the Conservatives, that if we have a pipeline, we open up our markets.
Well, you know, and that's a really good point, because look at every single Liberal policy that has been put in over the last 10 years. It's been reactive. They don't treat the root cause of any of the problems. They treat symptoms, and then they cause problems. And this has been a problem that they have actually caused. And it's been a problem that Mark Carney has perpetuated, because he hasn't repealed C-69. He hasn't repealed the tanker ban. All he did was put through C-75 that allows him to skirt around a couple of projects that he wants. So this is the problem. And this is what a lot of conservatives and a lot of conservative Canadians for years have been shouting from the rooftops. Well, the chickens have finally come home to roost. But it's crazy to see that Liberals on TV are actually starting to say, yeah, you were right.
The last word, Jamie, to you.
Yeah, listen, Vashti, if you look at the public polling on this, 2/3 of Canadians in pretty much every region of the country is in favor of getting this done. The MOU is a great first step. I was in Alberta a bit over the holidays, and people who generally vote Conservative think it's a good thing and are glad to see the feds and the province actually working together to move it done. The sooner they can make this a tangible proposal that further serves as a rallying cry to get all Canadians on side, including the Federal Conservative Caucus the better news that'll be for Canadians.
And you notice the different energy in some of the Conservatives here. I think they're
Hopeful.
I think they're a little satisfied that the Liberals are having to eat some crow here. I really do, because they've been called climate deniers for how many years for saying we need pipelines. That's been the narrative. Oh, if you want pipelines, you're a climate denier. You don't care about the environment. No, two things can be true at the same time. You can want a pipeline, but also care about the environment. And this is at the core of some of the Conservative policies. So it's interesting. You see a different energy between the Conservative commentators now, and there's a different energy on the Liberals side. Like they seem scared. They really do. And
well, I think some of the more leftist Liberals are seeing the party adopt conservative policies. Again, Pierre Poilievre wanted to implement a pipeline. And now that looks like our only option. And the Liberals are getting quite nervous because, again, they're kind of, what's the right word? They are stealing the Conservatives' ideas, but they're not quite doing a good enough job.
Well, because there's no thought behind them, and that's the issue. Whereas the Conservatives have had this full plan ready for over a year now, and they're just, it must be killing them to just see them screw it up in every sense of the word, and half-ass it, half-implement it, and try and please everybody by not doing something. But this is going to be, I think, a real tipping point in the polls, because if Mark Carney doesn't pull that executive trigger and say, too bad, we're doing a pipeline, this could actually be the death of the Mark Carney government as we head into the spring. Chrystia Freeland has resigned. We may have a new seat come open in the Terrebonne riding if that court challenge is successful, and there may be 3 or 4 other Liberals that may be resigning their seats. So any hope of a Liberal majority, at least for the next 6 months, is out the window. And as that NDP race comes to an end, then the clock starts ticking on when the next federal election is going to be. So it should be a very interesting 2026.